In today's show, the Trailblazers get absolutely steamrolled to open the season with their worst season opening loss in franchise history, the hands of the Golden State Warriors. That's one way to start a season. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, the Blazers suffered their worst season opening loss in franchise history. They get steamrolled, walloped, thrashed, and beat down by the Golden State Warriors 139-104. We'll talk about that game. We'll do our fastest recap in the West, run it back like we do. Talk about where they go from here. That was a sobering game. So hopefully where they go from here is up, but I think this was the sort of slap in the face, cold water type of thing where it's like, oh, yeah. And then I want to talk, to close the show, a little bit about just sort of what I'm calling an inconvenient truth, to borrow a phrase. There's just a reality here with this team, and I think this is a thing that's going to stick with them all season long, and it's not easy to solve. Some of the stuff you can solve, some of it is just the reality of this team, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to beat you down with negativity. This was an absolute stinker. Chauncey Billups said after the game that no one played well. He didn't think anyone played well, but we can talk about this without the sky completely falling. In fact, the sky might have already fallen in this game, so let's just try to pick it up and move a little bit from there. First, let's do what we do. Fastest recap in the West. The Blazers led 8-1. They led 10-3, but it was tied 21-21 after the first quarter. The Warriors came back to tie the game. The Blazers, I thought, played pretty well in the first 5 minutes, but couldn't sustain that offense to close the quarter, particularly with the second unit into the game. And then the Warriors dominated the second quarter to the tune of 41-29 to lead at the break by 12, 62-50. They didn't stop thrashing the Blazers in the third quarter, outscored them 37-22, a plus 15 third quarter. That's a real problem, and they led 99-72 at after 3 and went on to cruise 139-104. That's your fastest recap in the West. In the middle two quarters, the Warriors scored 78 points. In the middle two quarters, they almost put an 80 spot on them. 41 and then 37, and they still scored 40 in the fourth. That's after a 21-point first quarter, right? Blazers, Warriors started a little bit slow. Blazers, like I said, let's talk about this in a moment, but Blazers, I thought, played okay in the first 9 minutes or so. But 41 in the second quarter. 37 in the third, 40 in the fourth quarter. Like, the Warriors got what they wanted. This doofus right here, the guy talking into the microphone, if you're watching on YouTube, me. If you're listening, also me, but you can't see me. If you're listening to the audio podcast, I was saying the Blazers could have an above average defense this year, and they can. This is only one game, but the Warriors got what they wanted. They got what they wanted. They ran off makes. They ran off misses. They forced turnovers. They got 2 on the ball and then beat the Blazers with baseline cuts. Every time the Blazers sent 2 to the ball, the Warriors got the ball to the middle of the court, got out of the trap immediately. Never had to deal with difficulty of the trap. Got it out quickly, immediately, and their players in the middle of the court, whether it be Draymond or Jonathan Kuminga or Trace Jackson Davis or even Kevon Looney, whoever was catching the ball in the middle of the floor was making easy decisions against the Blazers, in 4-on-3 situations where you have a man advantage and making easy reads and getting easy layups out of it. The Warriors leveraged the Blazers' pressure to get layups, and then they outshot them from 3 in the first half. The Warriors made 10 threes. The Blazers made 3. That is largely the difference in the game, a plus 21 at the stripe. You're up You're up 12 at the break, though, but 62 points felt like a lot. And then the third quarter, it just got ugly in a hurry. All of a sudden, this was a beatdown. You know, it's the Warriors led by as many as 29 in the third. They ended up 27, so you kind of get it. But Chauncey Billups came out and spoke to reporters. I attended the game, so I was one of the reporters in the room. But he came out and he said, like, you know, he questioned his team's effort. He questioned the team's focus. He said, you know, we got out-competed. They beat us to every loose ball. They beat us back in transition. They were the first team on the floor. He said the transition defense was about focus. When the shot goes up, you have to sprint back. You have to win the first 3 steps, because if you don't win the first 3 steps, you're chasing someone. And the Blazers did a bunch. They got beat, but, you know, guys just got behind them and beat them for easy buckets in transition. This has been a problem all during preseason. You know, the coaching staff talked about it, but how many times do you need to talk about it before you just like, okay, don't give up simple ones. Some of defense is going to be tough, right? Like when they beat the double team and then they have guys who can make plays out of the double team and beat you for layups because they're just well coached and that things are well designed. You know, when you're worried about the shooting of Steph Curry and you're worried about the shooting of Buddy Hield, who was really good and one of the big differences in this game, 22 off the bench for the Warriors. When you're worried about all of those things and the Warriors can leverage all of those things, defense gets hard. Running back in transition, the focus to remember to run back in transition, the effort to make sure you're at least between the guy and the rim, right? So it's a little bit harder. That's an effort issue. And a night one effort issue, a night one focus issue, that's troubling. Some of the skill stuff, like, it is what it is, right? Like the Blazers in the second quarter to close the first quarter, rolled out a lineup of Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, Ryan Rupert, Chris Murray, and Donovan Clingan. That's just not going to be that competitive of a roster against good teams in the NBA. Ant, Scoot, Roops, Chris, and DC is just not going to be that competitive of a roster against NBA teams. That is what it is. That's talent, right? Like I'm probably not going to be too critical of talent. Effort in game one, focus in game one, does not reflect well on anyone. Chauncey Billups said nobody played well. He didn't coach very well either. The team sucked. He sucked. Everybody sucked. It was the worst loss in franchise history, 139-104. A 35-point loss in a game in which they trailed by as many as 37. The last time the Blazers lost a game by the second worst loss in franchise history, by my quick research on StatHead, was the beginning of the 1971-72 season when the Blazers lost to the Seattle Supersonics 119-88. That's a 31-point loss. That season is the worst season in franchise history in terms of victories. They have never won fewer games in a season than a 71-72. Yikes. This does not portend well. Part of this is that the Blazers are reliant on their top-heavy vets to kind of prop up the offense, right? Jeremy Grant went 6 of 18. DeAndre Ayton, I thought, had a really nice first quarter, particularly nice first half, finished 5 of 12 with 10 points. And 10 points, 11 boards, but a really, really quiet second half. Anthony Simons struggled, 5 of 12. Denny Avdia, I thought you could see it in the opening 5 minutes. Like, some of the Blazers' success in the opening 5 minutes was that Steph Curry missed 2 wide-open three-pointers. They're up 10-3, and Steph bricked 2 wide-open threes, and it just feels different if he makes those, right? So you knew it was going to happen. Steph went 0 for 4 from 3 in the first half, and the Blazers were down double digits at halftime. It was troubling. When it was 80-63 with 6 minutes left in the third quarter, Chauncey Billups turned to the deep end of his bench. He brought in Jabari Walker, who hadn't played, and Delano Banton, who hadn't played, and pretty much waved the white flag. He did bring the starters back out to open the fourth quarter, but then eventually went down the stretch with the youngsters at the end of the bench. Duop Reith is like 28. He's not that young. You got your big starting lineup of Anthony Simons alongside Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton. Your bench in the regular run of play was Scoot Henderson, Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert, and Donovan Clingan. Basically the exact three-quarter lineup that the Blazers played in their final preseason game, as predicted right here on the podcast. Usually Chauncey Billups kind of shows you what it is. He showed you what it is in the final preseason game. That was the group I said, that's your 9, and that was your 9, and they stunk. Some of it is top-heavy stuff. If Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, and Anthony Simons are going to struggle, this team's going to struggle. I thought Scoot Henderson had a bumpy first quarter. He came in with about 6 minutes and 45 seconds left in the first quarter and played for basically 14 straight minutes. Didn't come out. It didn't come out until under the 5-minute mark of the second quarter, and he stayed in the game in the second quarter because he found a little rhythm. I thought he played. I thought particularly beginning of the second quarter, Scoot probably played as well as he played all game. He did finish with 22 to lead all scorers for the Blazers, but 9 of those came in the fourth quarter when the game was over. Garbage time. The points are the points. You still get them, but they're not all created equal in this way. I thought Denny Avdia in the first 5 minutes, you could see his value, but you could also see some struggles. He threw a couple lob passes to DeAndre Ayton that just like Ayton wasn't ready for. He kind of had a couple drives where he got caught in traffic a little bit, but you could see that Denny is going to help make things happen. Let's talk about building on this. Some of it is simple. The simplest adjustment is there for them, but I think there were some things that weren't a total nightmare in this game, but don't get it twisted. This was a bad one. This was a bad one. All right, let's talk about how they build off of this game, because you hope the only way they go is up after losing by 35 on night one and giving up a $139 at home to the Warriors. Join me in that second segment. Let's talk about the build. But first, I want to tell you about Gametime, the place for last-minute tickets. What makes Gametime a great app is because they got all these features that make it easier for you to get deals on tickets. They got Gametime picks. They got curation. When you open up the app, they're going to curate picks right in the venue that you're looking at to help you save more on sporting events, on concerts, on comedy, on theater, whatever you're trying to find. How it works is with a couple clicks, you say, I'm in this city. For me, Portland, Oregon. What do I want to go see? Well... It was soccer most of the summer, and during the Blazer games, I'm usually going as a member of the media. But say you want to go to a Blazer game, type in Portland Trail Blazers, 2 clicks, you're looking at the Moda Center floor, and the Gametime picks will say you want to sit close, here's a good deal. You want to sit a little further back, here's a good deal. You want to sit up top, here's a good deal. Plus, I like to toggle in the all-in pricing feature, so it shows you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. If it says it's going to cost you $18 to sit upstairs, well, guess what? When you get to checkout, you're going to pay $18 to sit upstairs. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime and Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right. So, the Blazers, this was not a good one, right? I think there was some hope after the preseason that they would be a little more competitive than this. Certainly more competitive than a 35-point home loss, but a little more competitive. There's some hope. But this was a sobering reality. This was the truth that they have a slim margin for error, right? The defense got shredded. That's a problem. And the effort and the energy stuff is a problem. And I think that falls on the players, and I think it falls on the coaching staff. Not having your dudes ready to compete is a coaching problem, and not competing and letting go of the rope is a player's problem. If you don't show up ready and then you quit, that is both the problem of the coaching staff and the players just kind of letting go of the rope. And at the end of this game, you could see this team, it demoralized them. Getting their butts beat demoralized them. Giving up 78 points in the middle 2 quarters, in the second and third quarter combined, and basically an 80 spot in the middle 2 quarters, it demoralized them. And they played like a team getting their butts whipped. And the cold reality of the season is that they're just not talented enough to be able to hang with everybody. The way they're going to stay in games is that they're going to have to be competitive. They're going to have to be pesky. They're going to have to play harder than the other team, or at least as hard as the other team. If they get out competed, they're not only going to lose, they're going to get embarrassed. And tonight was an embarrassment. That's an embarrassing way to begin the season. But there's 81 more of these things. It ain't over. I mean, maybe like, I think like this particular podcaster has kind of maintained all season long that they're all off season long that the Blazers are going to be one of the 5 worst teams in the league. So I am not taking an I told you so victory lap. This sucked. But I think there is a reality that they're going to lose some games, right? Like this is real, and they're going to lose some games when they're fully like when they got their guys. They don't have enough scores to hang. That's just true. And if Jeremy Grant goes 6 of 18 and Anfernee Simons has a very quiet 5 of 12, 15 points, 5 turnover night, very quiet and also bad, you're not going to be good enough. DeAndre Ayton's needs to push up towards 20. He had 10 and 11. But I think there's places to build. One, this is low-hanging fruit. Get back in transition. They were awful in transition during the preseason. That was a problem all preseason long. To have it show up in the way that it did here is troubling, but that is a fixable thing. How good they end up being overall in transition, I think some of their transition is when they get back, they are, I saw this happen with Scoot once. He kind of ran back and found his guy. Well, another guy just ran behind him and got a layup. It's like, I know you are indeed guarding pods. Well, guess what? DeAnthony Melton is behind you getting a layup. Like, you've got to get to the rim. So some of that is just like guys identifying what is needed in transition defense. Some of it's just running. When the shot goes up, if you're going to take jump shots, or you're going to, even if a guy has a layup, particularly when a guy has a layup, you can run off layups. Get back. When you make threes, get back. When you miss threes, get back. That's a place to build. Just transition defense. Play it a little bit better. The easiest adjustment that is there for them is to have guys make shots. Anfernee Simons can play better. He is not this bad of an offensive player. Certainly he has his struggles, and he played a bunch off the ball in this game, which I think in some ways led to him having just 15 shooting possessions, 12 field goal attempts, and 3 free throws. But it is what it is. Like he just needs to shoot better. He's 2 of 7 from 3. If he makes 3 of 7, he has a nice 3-point shooting night. But regardless, he just can't. The volume has to be higher, and the efficiency has to be a little bit better, and he can't turn the ball over 5 times. Jeremy Grant, 6 of 18, 2 of 8 from 3. They need him to shoot threes. They need him to make threes. He just wasn't quite there tonight. But I think some of I think the Denny Avdia stuff was up and down, right? Like I think in the opening 5 or 9 minutes, whatever his first shift was, the first quarter of Denny Avdia, you could see like, okay, he's got a little bit of stuff. Like he can make plays. He's aggressive on offense. He's a couple times he got Buddy Hield switched onto him when the Warriors went to their bench, and he bullied Buddy Hield, right? He said, okay, this dude can't guard me. I'm too physical. Get to the rim. Build on that. Let Denny attack mismatches. And let Denny attack mismatches with the shooters ready to shoot around him. I think more on-ball stuff for Denny when he has mismatches, which means running stuff to get Denny a mismatch. So having a small guard screen for him, having Scoot or having Ant screen for Denny, either immediately off the ball so the teams have to switch it, or when Denny gets on the ball, and then let him go to work. He had a post up where he drew a foul as well. He also just had some bad turnovers. He also had some kind of tough drive into a crowd decisions on offense. The half court offense might be a challenge. I thought Scoot did an okay job of getting himself into the paint, particularly in the second quarter. I thought he played with a real rhythm and kind of found his confidence in the second quarter. Had a much more comfortable quarter. There's going to be dudes in the paint for Scoot. they're going to crowd the paint if you can't shoot. But getting Scoot comfortable attacking and getting into those, playing with that rhythm and playing with that confidence matters. And then when you do turn the ball over, there was a stretch where Denny had got his pocket picked and then committed a charge. But if he didn't call him for a charge, he'd already thrown the ball away trying to throw a lob. You gotta get back. You cannot give up easy buckets on a team that's going to struggle to score. So there's some simple things to build here. The way you utilize Denny Avdia, particularly getting him to matchups he can attack in the half court. Building some chemistry with DeAndre Ayton. I don't think DA and Denny have that chemistry yet, but that is a work in progress. And the shooters have to shoot better. They only got 2 of them. Their best 2 shooters are Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant. This isn't a tactical adjustment. This is the classic adjustment. Play better. Those 2 dudes need to play better because it's going to be tough to be competitive without that. Chauncey said that he didn't think anyone played well. I would agree with that on the whole. I don't think this was a game where you could say, okay, there was one thing that went right. I think there were little possessions of daylight and otherwise a black rain cloud. I also think there's an inconvenient truth building with the reality of this team. And I think it played out in the first quarter and eventually played out for the whole game. Let's talk about that to close the show, because there's a challenge that's going to be here regardless. And as much as you build and get better, you clean up the little things and play a little bit smarter with utilization of some of your weapons, like some of your parts. There's an inconvenient truth about the roster. Let's talk about that to close the show. Join me in the third segment. First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your games all season long. So you make a selection. You pick 2 players. Prize Picks sets the statistical line, and you pick more or less than that line. And if you sign up today, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide you even more value with your lineups. So download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. Download that app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Still a pass first point guard, still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Here's the truth. In the first half, the Warriors attempted 27 threes. The Blazers took 16. I mentioned this in an episode to close the preseason. I said what we learned from preseason. I mentioned that I thought shooting would be a problem all year long. And part of that shooting wouldn't just be accuracy. It would be volume. Can the Blazers get up enough threes in a reasonable manner to compete with a league that is so outrageously three-point happy? And then I watched the champs on opening night. I watched the Boston Celtics hunt threes methodically. And they led the league in three-point attempts last year. They also won the championship. And the math is coming. Typically, the league is a copycat league where the best teams kind of set the trends and other teams try to catch up with those trends. And what the Celtics do is they find the weakest link, they put that link in a pick and roll, And either they walk into a three-pointer if you can't guard the pick and roll, or they beat you into the paint, force you to help, and then spray out for threes beyond that. They run very simple action, and the reason why the Celtics get away with it is because they got a lot of talented players. They got a lot of dudes who can drive and pass and shoot, and so they can run a pretty basic offense in terms of actions and just be smart about how they do it and just hunt it down. And they're pushing up NBA record three-pointers for 3 points made against the Knicks on opening night. That was maybe an outlier shooting game, but the strategy is not an outlier. The approach is not an outlier. The results are. The approach is going to be there. The volume is going to be there. Not every single team plays like the Celtics. And shoot, no team can really play like the Celtics. But half the league, 20 teams, 22 teams, a bunch of the league is going to hunt three-pointers at a very high level. The volume is going to get pushed up, and we are probably approaching maybe diminishing returns on volume of threes, but are we there yet? And our team's going to, push the limit to see what are the true diminishing returns of threes. If the volume gets ticked up, the math is going to win at some point, and it's going to particularly win against teams that aren't in the same range. If you've taken 11 fewer threes than your opponent in the first half, it's going to be challenging for you to be competitive without having one heck of a free throw and layup generating offense, right? Like, you're going to need to get easy ones somewhere. Blazers don't really have a half-court offense that's likely to generate a ton of layups, and they're not a high free throw team just yet. Although I think Denny can end up better there because he plays a physical brand of basketball, and so does Toumani Camara to some extent. Denny took 8 free throws in this game. Toumani took 4. They can get there. Scoot took 9. There's a world in which the Blazers are a decent free throw shooting team. But I think the inconvenient truth is that the Blazers don't have a way to generate much more volume of threes. Jeremy took 8. Ant took 7. Scoot took 5 and didn't make any of them. He finished 7 of 18 for 22 points. DeAndre took 2. That's a big uptick from not quite even, from a 0.2 of 1 a season ago on average. Like, that's an uptick. Toumani took 4. I think you're pushing the limits with Toumani on about 7 a game, and I'm not sure there's, but like, all of this is to say, the Blazers took 34 threes. That's a bunch. Through 3 quarters, they had taken 26. That's a bunch, right? That's 8 a quarter. The Warriors took 27 in the first half. You don't want to just chuck up threes. That's not the math, right? It's to generate quality three-pointers at a high level. That's the math. And then, like the Warriors did in this game, use the fear of threes to generate layups. The fear of outside shooting to get you easier shots at the rim. That's the goal of this era of basketball. How you generate layups, right? But if every team last year took between 30 and 40, I wouldn't be surprised if this season every team in the league takes between 35 and 45. If the Blazers, who took 34, are on the low end of attempts because they just, where are they going to get more volume three-point shooting? And they don't have enough plus shooters, so they're always going to be the low end of makes. It's just going to be hard for them to win. That is the inconvenient truth, is that I don't think they have a way to generate enough volume of threes to be a highly competent offense, or even a moderately competent offense. It's going to be a struggle for them. They have to win in other ways. Now, when Shaedon Sharpe gets back, he's another guy who shoots some threes, and he'll be able to generate more offense on his own. And that'll be simpler assuming Shaedon Sharpe comes back as healthy and continues to take strides as a young player that showed a lot of promise. There is a world in which they are more competitive in the future, and I think almost any game is going to be better than giving up a buck 39 at home and losing by 35 in a game that did not need a fourth quarter because it was pretty much over. They didn't need them. midway through the third quarter, the Blazers were down 27. This one was pretty much cooked. The inconvenient truth is that I don't know that in a league that is going to chase a volume of threes, I don't know that the Blazers roster is constructed such that they could chase a volume of threes in a way that it would be beneficial. Sure, they could get up more attempts. Warriors finished with 48. They finished with 34. Sure, the Blazers could take 6 more threes and get to 40, but are those 6-3 quality looks, or are you just hunting nonsense? Because jacking up bad threes is not actually good offense. Can the team generate positive? Can the Blazers generate, say they take 40 threes, can they generate 32 quality looks from 3 each night? It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, and I think that is a real challenge. I think there's some stuff they can clean up and get better at, but I think that is going to be a thing that is with them all year. This was a real slap in the face. I think the best part about this game is that it's done. I don't think there's a lot of other best parts. There's 81 more. Beginning Friday against New Orleans. Blazers play the Pelicans on Friday evening. The Pelicans point guard, DeJounte Murray, according to ESPN, fractured his hand in the opening game, so he will obviously not play on Friday or Sunday, but the Blazers play 2 against the Pelicans over the weekend, so Monday show we will talk about those. A Friday show you're going to enjoy it. Dan Devine of Yahoo Sports is going to join the program. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. 81 more. They're going to get better. And if they don't get better, at least we'll have a little bit of fun here. So come hang out. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.